A woman canceled a date with me after I told her I was autistic because she thought she couldn't handle me. I appreciate the kind words, but this was years ago. I am over it and happily married now. Please use your comment to answer the question instead. Story 1. My high school girlfriend said I was the kind of guy that girls settle for in terms of looks. I refused to believe the obvious signals from a few attractive girls after that. Story 2. When I was 13, a girl started flirting with me in the cafeteria, so I flirted back. After a bit of back and forth, she said, "Oh, do you think I would be interested in a skinny nerd like you? You must be delusional." Then a whole table of friends started laughing. It had been a setup just to make fun of me. After 44 years, it still almost seems like yesterday. Story 3. I overheard a girl I liked tell her friend that I would be a great boyfriend if I weren't overweight. At the time, it hurt. 16 years later, I realized it was the wake-up call I needed. Story 4. I was seeing a girl for a while. We were out riding one day, and I stopped by my parents' house to let the dog out since my parents were out of town. I invited her in, and she looked at all the pictures on the walls. She stopped at one and said, "Is this you?" It was me years ago as a pretty heavy-set teenager. I confirmed it, and she suddenly grew quiet. I got the dog, locked up, and we left. When I took her home, she told me she couldn't stop thinking about that picture and how I was just so heavy. She said she couldn't unsee it and that she didn't think we could see each other anymore. I experienced a moment of stunned silence before telling her that I thought that was one of the most disrespectful and shallow things to say to someone. I then thanked her for revealing who she really was early on and told her to get out of my car. Bullet dodged. Story 5. I was on public transport when a group of girls nearby caught my attention. One of them was crying because she had asked a guy out, but he turned her down. She exclaimed, "He turned me down. That must mean I'm ugly." One of the other girls reassured her, saying, "You're not ugly. See that guy over there?" She pointed to me and added, "That's what ugly looks like. You don't look like that." All the girls turned to me and stared as if I were a science exhibit. I remember staggering off the train, stunned and wondering if I was even really human. Story 6. When I was 14 or 15, a girl told me that I wasn't tough enough for her. I didn't realize that being reserved in that way would affect my chances with girls. Experiences like that held me back from pursuing girls who I never thought would be interested in me, but it turned out that some were. Story 7. I once had a girl complain about my size. When I pointed out that 5.5 is average, she said, "I guess I'm just used to bigger guys." Story 8. You couldn't find one that at least walked correctly? The mother of a girl I was seeing. I walk with a noticeable limp due to mild cerebral palsy, but like you, I am married now. Story 9. I was dating a doctor who became addicted to the pain medication she prescribed. I supported her through rehabilitation, visiting her at the hospital every weekend for 4 months, traveling from Pennsylvania to Alabama. When she got home, she stayed with me for 2 months because I do not drink or use drugs, providing a safe space for her. Then she ended our relationship for another person in one of her classes because he understood what she was going through while I did not. That experience left a mark. Story 10. One girl I was seeing for a while broke it off with me, and the last thing she said was, "I hope you treat the next one better." That has messed me up ever since. I wish I still had the text saved so I could use it as motivation. A lot of self-reflection and time have passed, and I'd like to say I have improved the way I speak and communicate with others. Story 11. In high school, an older student asked a group of women sitting nearby who they would prefer to be with, me or another similarly unattractive, unpopular classmate. The consensus was that they would rather not choose either option. This experience, combined with numerous instances during and after high school when I was directly told I was ugly by both acquaintances and strangers, contributed to lifelong self-esteem issues. I am now 32 and have been in therapy for 4.5 years. I still find it difficult to approach women when I am at a bar or a singles event. Story 12. Being called barely a man and mocked for being 5 feet 8 inches tall, which is an inch shorter than the American average, is unreasonable. You can have physical preferences, but ridiculing someone for them is absurd. Another hurtful experience was when a romantic interest told me on a few occasions that I was husband, not boyfriend material. This is not the compliment it may seem unless you are actually considering marriage. These are not the types of individuals I am looking for, and I should not waste energy dwelling on it. However, it still stings. Story 13. I asked a girl who seemed interested in me if she wanted to go on a date. She told me she would need to think about it. In my experience, that usually means the girl isn't really interested. I didn't expect her to mention it again. Kudos to her. She did follow up in person about a week later and said that she appreciated me asking her. She likes me as a friend but likes to have fun and doesn't think we would work out. I don't know what that meant since we only ever hung out in the college library where we met, so I don't understand why she thought I wasn't fun. It must be a vibe or something. She was really nice about it and not trying to be mean, but for a while, it bothered me that people perceived me as not being fun. Part of that probably stems from how, as a teenager, most people my age preferred hanging out with my brother, inviting him places and doing things while ignoring me and talking about how I always looked miserable, even when I wasn't. I just have some serious resting face, I guess. I don't know. Ultimately, it was a pretty tame experience compared to what other people share, but it was hurtful despite knowing that she didn't mean to hurt me, and it definitely impacted my confidence. Story 14. I once worked up the courage to go in for a kiss with a girl I thought I was hitting it off with on a night out. We had known each other for a couple of months and flirted occasionally. We were drinking together one night, and there was a moment of silent eye contact. So I decided to go for it. She put her hands over her mouth, laughed derisively through her covered mouth, and then escalated to a full-blown laugh while pointing at me. When she stopped, she finally let out a sigh and said, "Okawaye," while side-eyeing the window next to us. I apologized, shrugged, and said, "Gotta try to find out, I guess." It affected me for a few months, and I definitely didn't approach any girls I liked for some time because I felt it wasn't worth the hit to my self-esteem. I'm honestly fine with rejection, but mixed with ridicule, it feels like bullying in my opinion. Fast forward 12 years later, I am very happy with my kind-hearted partner, and we have a child on the way. So, I guess I should be thankful I dodged a bullet. Story 15. In my freshman year of high school, I was getting acquainted with a girl who looked like she belonged in a valley and was really easygoing. One day, out of nowhere, she pulled me out of class and asked me if I was gay. I was so confused because I didn't act or look gay, but the reason she asked was that she found it suspicious that I could easily get along with girls at school. It kind of made me insecure at the time because I didn't want to give off that impression at all. I had to distance myself from the girls and limit my interactions to boys only for a while. Is it gay to have female friends? Story 16. One of my exes, the day we broke up, said, "You need to grow up and figure your life out." At the time, I was angry, and it bruised my ego. I thought, how dare she say that? I had a tough childhood and a tough life, but after reflecting on it, she was right. I wasn't doing anything with my life. I had no direction or purpose. Although I had faced difficulties up to that point, I was an adult and needed to take control of my life and come up with a plan. No good woman would want to be with a man who lacked direction and ambition. No one is coming to save you, gentlemen. It is your duty to figure out why you were put on this earth and be ambitious enough to pursue that purpose. Women will put up with a lot, but they won't tolerate a loser. Having a woman you love tell you to your face that you're a loser will either crush you or motivate you. In my case, I used it as fuel. Story 17. When I asked her out, she yelled, "You gross," and then walked away, stopping all communication with me and telling her friends to do the same. Story 18. I was at a teenage house party years ago where a group of guys and girls were interacting with each other. Everyone was encouraging a girl to become involved with me. I overheard her say, "I'm not getting with that." I left feeling embarrassed and depressed. Story 19. A girl once reacted negatively when I asked her out to a high school dance. Years later, when I became attractive, she messaged me unexpectedly to ask how I was doing. I laughed and responded negatively, then muted the conversation. Story 20. I dated a woman for over a year and a half. We lived together for about 8 months at that point. We had discussed marriage, children, and our future together. There was no doubt that I was going to propose, and it was hinted at as clearly as a company suggesting you buy its products. I proposed, and she hesitated before saying no. Story 21. The first real physical encounter I had with a woman after my divorce was confusing. My body seemed to have its own thoughts, reacting in ways that didn't match my expectations. I felt a disconnect, as if my body was reminding me that she wasn't my ex-wife, yet still longing for the connection. There was a lot of back and forth, a cycle of tension and release. She touched me tenderly during a moment of vulnerability, and things felt intensely inappropriate and exciting. She asked how I could not be aroused at that moment, and I simply shrugged, explaining that it fluctuated. I struggled with insecurity, wondering if something was physically wrong. This happened over a year ago, but only recently did I realize that there was nothing wrong with me. It was all in my mind. Those moments have lingered in my thoughts ever since. Story 22. I met up with a girl for a date, and we started talking. I'm interested in marine biology, so I brought that up as a topic. I thought the date was going well, but when I got home, I received a text from her. She said, "Hey, I don't think we'll be seeing each other again. I'm not looking for someone who knows a lot about a subject but doesn't have a job in that field. Thanks for dinner." It really hurt me. I think I would have preferred her to call me boring like the last girl I went on a date with instead of that. Story 23. I connected with a friend of a friend and had difficulty achieving an erection. She mentioned that my penis was broken. That comment hurt. Story 24. During my freshman year, I had a class where the teacher asked us to find a partner for practice exercises and projects. One of the popular girls discovered she was the third wheel, so she didn't have a partner, and neither did I. Since we were the only two without partners, I asked if she wanted to team up. She rolled her eyes and reluctantly agreed. The first time the teacher instructed us to partner up, she stayed with her other friends and loudly told them she didn't want to work with that ugly loser. Her friend realized I heard her comment and attempted to smooth things over, saying she didn't mean it and was just having a bad day. I assured her that I understood and was fine. Years later, I became a police officer and pulled over a swerving vehicle. To my surprise, she was the driver and appeared to be intoxicated. I had another officer administer the field sobriety tests, which she failed, leading to her arrest for operating a vehicle under the influence. Story 25. When I asked a girl why she chose another guy over me, she said, "He was just a fling and had a hot body." This completely destroyed my confidence and made me feel angry and filled with rage. Story 26. I am also autistic, although I wasn't diagnosed until well into adulthood. I was bullied mercilessly at school and couldn't figure out what was wrong with me and why I didn't fit in. When I was 15, I overheard one of the popular girls saying to a popular guy, "He's not bad looking, but his personality is just awful. Thank you, Charlotte. You and the other popular kids made my life difficult." Story 27. An ex told me I should never have children because I am clumsy and would harm a baby by walking on them or dropping them. I have 2 teenage children now, so she was wrong. Story 28. First off, I don't exactly have confidence that could be damaged, but here are a couple of things I was told. I was told I'm too soft, and since that's still bouncing around in my head, I feel like she might be right. I showed another girl some pictures of me, and she said I need to change how I dress because I look like I don't care about my appearance. The thing is, in most of those pictures, I was specifically trying to dress well. Story 29. I really liked this girl when I was a teenager. She and I worked at a nursing home. I worked in the kitchen and she worked in the dining room. One evening, we were standing around talking, and some of my coworkers started teasing me about her. They asked if I wanted to kiss her and be intimate. After they had me feeling nervous, she stood up from the other side of the counter, and I felt embarrassed. I almost ended my night in a bad way. I quit the job shortly after that. It was impossible for me to see her again, and I couldn't avoid her. That experience shook my confidence with women until I turned 21. Joining the military ultimately helped me. I am married now, but that was a really difficult thing to go through. Story 30. One time I was told, If it's going to be awkward every time we say goodbye, I don't think this is going to work out. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I made the same mistake with a different girl later that year. This was 2 years ago, and I haven't really tried to date since then. I've become more quirky and socially anxious. Story 31. I've been frequently rejected for being deaf and blind. None of that hurts my confidence, as it's normal to avoid dealing with someone who cannot drive and is perceived as lesser. However, one time, a girl said she wouldn't go out with a blind guy because her mother was blind, and she didn't want to deal with anyone like that. For some reason, that annoyed me. I told her that not all blind people are the same, and that she sounded like one of those people who say they won't date someone of a certain race because they had a bad experience with one person from that group. She didn't like hearing that. Story 32. Wants me to only have sex with her but does not want to have sex with me. She becomes combative when I point out that these are incompatible desires. Having both violates my boundaries. Story 33. I thought we had a chance at a connection, but she began to breadcrumb me for communication and attention. Prior to that, she was flattering me and offering compliments. At first, I was suspicious that she was not genuine or authentic as a person. I ended things face to face. Following that, I became aware that she had a pattern of being disrespectful to people and ghosting them. I was fortunate to have ended things on my own initiative. It's quite possible that I dodged someone with a personality disorder or someone on the autism spectrum, which might manifest in a similar way. It doesn't matter. It's done. Story 34. My first girlfriend laughed at me when I tried dancing. We were in a club and it was my first time putting myself out there. I will never try again. Story 35. I have never had problems making women orgasm. Even if it's just a quick encounter in the car before we reach our destination, I always ensure she feels cared for and satisfied, usually multiple times, in case the night takes a turn. It has never been an issue, except for the dream girl I had the biggest crush on and who gave me a chance. She was as dry as the desert. Any sensitive area simply became irritated. We had to use lubricant every time, and she constantly complained about our lack of chemistry. She mentioned needing to drink before we had sex and even questioned if I was gay, which makes no sense since I would assume anyone's technique would still need to be strong, making it an odd way to criticize me. Eventually, she gave me the "we're just not a fit" speech when she broke up with me. I tried everything we could think of. In fact, I still have my copy of the Kama Sutra that I bought to explore new ideas. No, she is not asexual. Quite the opposite. She is very sex positive. She denied that I was bad in bed, though I'm not convinced, but it was clear she found me unappealing. I have experienced mismatched chemistry during intimacy enough times before and since, but I have never turned anyone off so completely. That situation affected me for years. I still worry if my technique is objectively weak and if I need to focus more on strength training or cardiovascular exercise. Story 36. Not that I really had any confidence to begin with, but I will never forget being at a dance in the 7th grade when one of the girls asked me if she could touch my chest. That one bothered me for a very long time, not just because it was a shot at me being overweight. By that time, I had been overweight for most of my life and I had heard everything. However, that was really emasculating to hear as a boy going through puberty. Story 37. I have been cheated on twice, once with a friend of mine. That seems pretty typical, though. Story 38. I showed a woman a book I had been involved with, and it contained a disclosure about my cerebral palsy. Her jaw dropped. I have had many people express disappointment about the reason for my slight limp, but none reacted as dramatically as she did. This was almost 20 years ago, though. Story 39. When I saw him, I wondered if he would be suitable for me. I have been struggling ever since. Story 40. I met a guy when we were both 18 years old, and he had a young baby. I told him I would have dated him if he didn't have a child. This stayed with me for a long time. We talked about it 10 years later, and he told me how much that hurt him. Dating someone with a young baby is a deal breaker for me. Story 41. I was dating a woman whom I really liked, and she was into running and all that healthy stuff. I had gone from over 300 pounds down to about 260 pounds. I was eating more vegetables and doing some healthier activities with her. I expressed an interest in going to a gym after she said she was thinking about starting back up, but she kept brushing me off. One day, I was talking about how I wanted to make these changes, and she said, "I wish you were in shape right now." She broke up with me shortly after that, which hurt me more than any of the abuse I had gone through in my life. After that, I got a fitness tracker and started tracking my steps. Then I joined a dance class and started walking, jogging, using a calorie tracking app and counting calories. After 3 months, I started a ketogenic diet for 6 weeks and dropped down to 170 pounds. I am 6 feet 4 inches tall and was almost as slim as I was in high school. Now I have a gym in my basement, eat relatively healthy, put on a good amount of muscle, and weigh a lean 240 pounds. I want to lose a few pounds in my belly after my wedding and honeymoon, but I see her at least once a year at my friends' gatherings. She was his wife's maid of honor, and I was his best man. I don't believe in winning or losing in a breakup, but I'm married to a blonde doctor, and she's married to a guy who picks his nose in front of people at parties, which I assume is his way of marking his territory. Story 42. A woman I was engaged to asked me to help her get her car diagnosed at an auto shop without being taken advantage of. When the auto shop called with the bad news about her car, I went to the shop and spoke with the mechanic myself. I returned to our place and told her about the conversation. She replied that I had left out one key question and ended with, "What kind of man are you? I need someone who can help with these things." Needless to say, our relationship didn't last a year, and I broke up with her after discovering she was an alcoholic. Story 43. I received the usual comment that I was husband material, not boyfriend material. But that pales in comparison to my worst moment yet. Back in high school, crushes were often the talk of the school, and one of my crushes was exposed. I happened to run into her between classes with her friends, and being shy, I felt like a deer caught in headlights. Her friends nudged her to talk to me, and she approached me to say she liked me too. Fireworks went off in my head, and I couldn't believe it. I got all excited, and we made plans to go out. I got stood up. She never showed up and never answered my texts. The next time I saw her at school, I was furious. I didn't understand ghosting or being stood up. All the complexities of dating were new to me. I confronted her while she was with her friends, and they laughed. To this day, I remember that scene vividly. Her friends laughed and said she never intended to date me or even go out with me at all. She never liked me. That was a lie. She never said a word or looked me in the eye. I assume she was pressured by her friends and, wanting to fit in with her group, treated me that way. Since that day, I have struggled to find myself in any serious relationships. I couldn't do it after that. I shut down for the rest of my years there and coasted through like a zombie. I didn't go to senior prom. I didn't have a date, and it felt strange to go alone. I could have gone with my friends, but I was too broken to do it. I am better now mentally, though my heart is still a mess. I am growing again. Those were truly dark times for me, but life happens. Story 44. Back in university, I was seeing someone, and at some point, she told me that she felt like the man in the relationship. This has stuck with me ever since. Some therapy helped a bit, but I think that is when it brought on deep-seated feelings of questioning my sexuality and even my identity as a man. I found shame in what I find attractive and realized that she is a product of the gender roles she grew up with. It continues to affect my self-esteem and confidence when talking to women I am interested in to this day. Story 45. When she saw my urostomy, she reacted negatively. I had informed her about my urostomy, explaining what it is, how I got it, and what it looks like. It took several years before I felt comfortable opening up to women again. Story 46. My ex is going to marry a random stranger instead of me. I'm from India, where girls are generally married off to individuals with a higher socioeconomic status. My previous partner did the same. I belong to the top 5% in India, but it is horrifying that one's value is often linked to their ability to provide. I have never been disrespectful or toxic, but witnessing people leave for various reasons diminishes my trust. I still do not understand what I did wrong. I engage in self-reflection and personal growth, but I have gradually learned that basic evolution often takes precedence over emotions. Individuals who are muscular, emotionally strong, capable of providing, and who act aloof tend to perform better than I do. Story 47. She told me I wasn't ready to be in a relationship because I didn't love myself enough. I don't want to hear that from someone who takes advantage of me. Story 48. We were friends with benefits. It was casual, though I wouldn't have minded something more. We were lying in my bed after intimacy when she started talking about other men she had slept with. She was really insecure and tried to make me feel insecure too. I recognized her intentions, but it still stung. In another story, with a different woman, we weren't romantically involved at all, and I was fine with that. Honestly, I didn't see her that way. She asked for help transporting some furniture, and I told her I wouldn't mind helping, but my vehicle wasn't big enough for the job. I suggested that if she rented a truck or borrowed one from someone, I would be happy to assist. She responded, "Maybe I should go down there with a measuring tape to check." It was so ridiculous and unexpected that I found it funny, but the venom in her voice was evident. She was trying hard to insult me just after I offered to help. In one sentence, she insulted my vehicle and implied my manhood wasn't enough. It was so outrageous that it didn't even bother me, though she clearly wanted it to. Story 49. I don't remember. However, from my experience, it seems that only less attractive individuals tend to make negative comments about others. Attractive individuals are usually kind and do not feel the need to behave that way. Story 50. I was probably just being broken up with. It only happened once, and I deserved it, but it completely shattered my world. Story 51. These girls in high school used to call me overweight all the time and prank me by pretending to like me, which damaged my confidence. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm glad you are married now. Story 52. I have two experiences. One that I unintentionally deserved and one I genuinely earned and still think about to this day. First, on a trip with friends in my early 20s in Colombia, I saw a group of girls and approached them, asking, "Are you all here alone?" Just reading that may come off as creepy, but my tone and energy were positive. I was smiling and friendly, and I simply wanted to talk to a group of attractive girls. Unfortunately, one of the girls in the group screamed and embarrassed me for my approach. I smiled, laughed, and walked it off, but it was painful to hear others laughing. As a young man among friends who were more confident with women, it made me feel bad about myself. Thankfully, I didn't dwell on it for too long because I realized that even if my approach was lacking, her response was uncalled for, and I didn't want to deal with anyone like that. Second, a friend and I were at the store when a beautiful woman walked in, just my type, trying to act like a cool guy, which I wasn't. I approached her while she was getting a drink and asked, "So, what are you getting?" I didn't put any effort into it because I felt insecure about my chances with someone like her. She looked at me, rolled her eyes, ignored me, and continued talking with the cashier. Even my friend noticed it. The vibe I got from her eye roll was that she thought, "You're cute, and I can tell you know how to talk to women properly. So why are you acting this way?" Stum. I didn't get mad at her. I was just disappointed in myself. Later, I realized this was a symptom of a larger issue. To this day, I always remember to just be myself, even if I think, "She's out of my league," or "She wouldn't like a nerd or smart guy," which stems from the traumas of the community I was raised in that led me to hide my true self. Story 53. It's not that I don't love you. I just love them more. This refers to a group of people and has created many feelings of inadequacy. Story 54. I tried to talk to a girl I liked when I was in 6th grade and received a kick in the groin in response. I didn't even do anything inappropriate, just said hello and got kneed. To make matters worse, her friends were there and laughed at me. Story 55. Blind date. She told my friend, who arranged it, that I was cute but short. I didn't mind it, though. I have been short my entire life, but I consider myself to look nicer than average. So the worst insult was probably not as bad as others. Story 56. My hair started to noticeably thin at 22. I had started dating a girl I had been flirting with at work for about a year. One morning, she looked at my hair and said, "Why did I have to get you now?" We stopped dating shortly after. It was the most painful thing anyone has ever said to me about my looks, and it ruined my confidence with the opposite sex for a good 6 or 7 years. Story 57. I never received explicit feedback from women. It was more about how they treated me compared to my attractive friend, who has a pretty face and a lean, athletic body. I often find myself as the supportive friend or amusing person in the background. My friend, on the other hand, has no dating skills or personality, yet everything he says is well received, and he attracts women who approach him first. This experience can be disheartening and highlights that, for both genders, appearance plays a significant role in attraction. However, men often face more challenges since they require certain genetic traits, such as facial features or height. Without these, it can feel like there is little chance for success. Story 58. In such a case, you were saved in advance. Don't be hard on yourself. The person who truly cares will not do such foolish things. Story 59. In my first year of high school, I was overweight and had gynecomastia. A girl in my class pointed out that my chest was larger than hers in front of other classmates. It hurt, and while I could say it stole my confidence, the truth is I didn't have much confidence to begin with. It's okay, though, because what she said was also self-deprecating. Years later, she developed an interest in me. Story 60. I was observing a girl and trying to understand why my classmates considered her unattractive and continually criticized her appearance. She noticed me looking at her and simply said, "Ew." Story 61. I have many experiences to share. I was born with 12 fingers, one extra finger on each hand. Needless to say, I was bullied a lot from the very first day I started school. In my opinion, I was and still am unattractive. When I was 12, I attended a summer camp where a blonde girl saw my remaining extra finger and couldn't stop screaming every time she saw it. We ended up in the same middle school, and she showed me to all her friends. At the same summer camp, a black girl constantly called me ugly and bullied me. I even had a fight with her. In middle school, girls would pretend to flirt with me only to tell me that I was unattractive. After a few incidents, I started ignoring them. Those were challenging times. Story 62. I was talking to a female friend in a larger group about how I had been goofing off the day before and was getting annoyed at the lack of control I had over my ring fingers. However, my choice of words was, "Ring fingers annoy me." She didn't miss a beat and replied, "Why? Because yours is empty." I couldn't even be that mad because that was such a fantastic roast. Part of me appreciated the quality. But wow. Story 63. I matched with a girl on a dating app in the early days. She was a mutual acquaintance through some college friends. I didn't talk to her on the app because she wasn't my type, and I was just swiping for fun. Anyway, I bumped into her at a friend's party one night, and she said, "Hey, didn't we match on that dating app a few months ago?" That was a really dark time in my life. I was taken aback by her comment and impulsively replied, "Wow, you're so much heavier and unfriendly in real life." She cried, and her friends called me an inconsiderate person, while my friends thought it was funny and justified. Story 64. I've realized that there are many good women out there who can handle a lot. Sounds like you found one who can support you. Story 65. I was cheated on by my first girlfriend. She was texting an old high school crush whom she thought looked like Chris Evans, although he did not. When I asked her why, she said it was because I could never turn my brain off and she found it annoying. She wanted a guy who could turn his brain off and just hang out. For context, I was a gifted child growing up and I had an academic scholarship in college. I was very proud of my intellect. She shattered that. Story 66. As a woman, I kindly ask you to read this. Why is it all about how someone looks? Most comments focus on appearance. I don't consider myself very attractive. Maybe a little cute based on the feedback I've received. With my fiancé, it feels like people think he is out of my league. The truth is, I find him very attractive just as he is. I don't go for flashy guys. We often argue about this issue, and I've learned that I'm not even his physical type. However, I have come to love him deeply. He often says he needs stimulation, so he often immerses himself in imagery. I can even pinpoint the girls he stares at on the street. As a man, what's going on? To me, it feels like he is settling, and I cannot accept that. Story 67. I asked a girl out in high school, someone I had known for years. She laughed when I asked. It was years before I had the courage to ask another woman out. That woman was very harsh, and I never had the confidence to ask another woman out after that. I am now 54 years old and have spent my life alone. I wanted a wife and family, but I will never have them. It's ironic. We were at a park overlooking a cliff. When I was laughed at, I briefly considered jumping. I felt so humiliated. Looking back, I wonder if I should have taken that leap. Story 68. Asked who I thought was a good friend, and she laughed as if I was a joke. She probably doesn't even remember, but that was 35 years ago, and it hurts like it was yesterday. Story 69. I'm not sure why that would hurt your confidence. If she wouldn't date someone with autism, then she doesn't have a good heart, and it's good you found that out before you wasted your time. Most women won't be a good match for you, and that's okay. I think it's great that you put yourself out there and try. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.